So, officially this time, good morning. Buongiorno, buenos días a todos, a todas. I'm Giulia. I'm the Advocacy Coordinator at UISG, the International Union of Superiors General. And it's my great pleasure to be your moderator this morning. So thank you all so much for coming. Welcome to everyone who's with us in the room. And welcome also to everyone who's joining us online. We know that you're there and we're glad that you're here. So it's a great pleasure to be gathered here today. And it's so fantastic to be gathered in the week of International Women's Day, of course, under the banner Women Leaders Towards a Brighter Future. So I'm going to very quickly run through a few bits of housekeeping before I pass the microphone to our opening speakers. I can hear a tiny little bit of echo. I hope you can't, but hopefully that will be sorted momentarily. So as you know, as you've hopefully seen coming in, there are emergency exits just outside to the right and toilets, in case you need them, just outside to the left. I'm still hearing a slight echo, but hopefully it'll leave us in a moment. For those of you who need it, I just want to remind us that we have translation headsets for simultaneous translation in 4 languages. So as you can see on the screen, you have English on channel 1, French on channel 2, Spanish on channel 3, and Italian on channel 4. The headsets are available at the desk just outside the room, and that desk will be staffed all day, so you can take them back anytime you leave. Try not to forget them in your handbag if you can. We will have a coffee break after the opening session, a lunch break, and then another coffee break in the afternoon. And there will also be a feedback survey later on, so keep an eye out for that. I think without any further ado, I will hand over the microphone, and it is my great pleasure to welcome Reverend Father Arturo Sosa Abascal, the Superior General of the Society of Jesus, who will open this session for us today. Thank you.
Good morning. I will speak in Spanish. Después de una primera palabra de calurosa bienvenida a esta casa, quiero leer antes que nada el mensaje del Santo Padre. El Santo Padre recibió la invitación de los embajadores y del director de Caritas Internationalis y responde de este modo, a través del sustituto de la Secretaría de Estado. Su santidad expresa su felicidad ante el anuncio de que el secretario general de Caritas Internationalis y los embajadores del Reino Unido y Australia organizarán conjuntamente una jornada de reflexión el 6 de marzo de 2024 con el título Mujeres líderes hacia un futuro más brillante. Y se muestra agradecido por la amable invitación. Pese a no poder asistir al evento, su santidad invoca sobre los participantes el don de la sabiduría de Dios Todopoderoso y reza para que las deliberaciones de la conferencia den frutos que se reflejen en un compromiso cada vez más grande por parte de todos dentro de la Iglesia y en el mundo entero, con la meta de promover el respeto a la dignidad equitativa y complementaria entre mujeres y hombres. Hasta aquí el mensaje del Papa. Por mi parte, me da mucho gusto darles la bienvenida a esta conferencia, a esta casa, con la finalidad de compartir desde la esperanza que nos une las experiencias y reflexiones que aumenten el deseo de seguir mostrando como mujeres líderes el camino al futuro que soñamos juntos. yo me permití traducir al español no un futuro más brillante, sino un futuro esperanzador. A hopeful future. Ser líderes desde la esperanza abre las posibilidades a pensar y actuar fuera de lo conocido, a proponerse lo que aparece como imposible desde la audacia de lo improbable. La esperanza genera esa audacia que se necesita para realizar en la vida actual lo que parece imposible e iniciar el futuro que se sueña en el presente. La esperanza que se nutre de la experiencia espiritual, del encuentro con Jesús, lleva a hacer hoy lo que se espera como futuro. Hace 3 años me dirigí a toda la compañía de Jesús en los siguientes términos. La compañía y la situación de la mujer en la iglesia y en la sociedad es el título del decreto número 14 de la Congregación General 34, promulgado hace más de 25 años. El decreto reconoce que también nosotros nos hemos hecho más conscientes de que este tema está en el centro de toda misión contemporánea que pretenda integrar fe y justicia. A su vez, la Congregación General 36 de la Compañía de Jesús en el año 2016 relaciona este tema con nuestra misión, indicando cómo todos nuestros apostolados tienen que ser una ayuda para la formación de hombres y mujeres comprometidos con la reconciliación, que sean capaces de superar obstáculos que a ellas se oponen y proponer soluciones. Abordar el tema de la participación de las mujeres desde la perspectiva de la colaboración en la misión es una oportunidad para comprender más profundamente hacia dónde nos lleva el Espíritu y dar mayor densidad a nuestra vida, comprometida a fondo en la misión de reconciliación y justicia en todos nuestros apostolados. Para profundizar este tema con la colaboración de muchas personas, se ha establecido una comisión internacional constituida por jesuitas, laicos y laicas para, primero, evaluar hasta qué punto está garantizado y se promueve el lugar de las mujeres en el discernimiento y la planificación apostólica de la Compañía de Jesús, basado en principios fundamentales como la corresponsabilidad, la colaboración y la inclusión. Segundo, evaluar la participación y posición de la mujer en todos los niveles de las instituciones de la Compañía de Jesús y en su labor apostólica. Tercero, hacer recomendaciones a los diferentes niveles de liderazgo de la Compañía de Jesús para fortalecer la misión de la compañía con la participación activa de las mujeres. Y cuarto, formular recomendaciones que permitan la incorporación en nuestras obras apostólicas del respeto mutuo, el cuidado y la solidaridad entre hombres y mujeres como dimensión integral de nuestro modo de proceder. Espero con confianza los resultados del trabajo de esta Comisión Internacional para impulsar los procesos necesarios para garantizar la participación de la mujer en la misión de la Compañía de Jesús y desde allí en la Iglesia y en las estructuras sociales. Estoy seguro de que las recomendaciones de la Comisión Internacional permitirán al gobierno de la Compañía de Jesús poner en práctica iniciativas concretas para avanzar en el establecimiento de relaciones fraternas y fecundas entre quienes, sin distinción de género, queremos contribuir a la reconciliación de todas las cosas en Cristo. Me disculpan que hable de la compañía, pero quería poner el compromiso que nosotros tenemos. Estoy seguro de que otros muchos tienen compromisos aún mayores, pero como compañía de Jesús, digo delante de ustedes que este compromiso queremos llevarlo hasta el final. De nuevo, les doy la bienvenida y comparto los deseos de tener un día de siembra que produzca frutos en abundancia. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Father, for setting the stage with that commitment on behalf of the Society of Jesus, and also for setting the stage with these words which really resonated, this idea of acting outside of what we know, actuar fuera de lo conocido. I think we all know that we're here today to talk about transformative change, what's being done and what still needs doing, and how we can, as you said, make a start today on the future that we're looking for together. So it is now my great pleasure and honour to introduce our next speaker, the Ambassador Chiara Porro, Australian Ambassador to the Holy See. Thank you.
Father General, Your Excellencies, Reverend Fathers, Reverend Brothers and Sisters, colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honour and privilege to be here today with you all at the Jesuit General Curia, co-hosting this important event on women's leadership alongside Ambassador Chris Trott and General Secretary Alistair Dutton. In this, my fourth year as Australian Ambassador to the Holy See, I can testify to the strong partnership which we have consolidated with both the British Embassy to the Holy See and Caritas Internationalis, and I'm particularly pleased to join with them today on this important topic and to say a few words on our behalf, a few words of welcome and a few acknowledgements. So I want to start by thanking Father Sosa for his words of welcome and also his expression of commitment to this issue, as well as his generosity in granting us use of this beautiful space today at the Curia. And I'm also grateful to Father Sosa for conveying the message from Pope Francis, whose good wishes and inspiring words strengthen our resolve to continue promoting true equality through our work. I would also like to acknowledge the generous financial contribution we received from the Porticus Foundation, whose grants program reflects the strong commitment to justice and human dignity that guides their philanthropic work. Similarly, I want to express my gratitude to all those who are supporting us in different ways to deliver today's program, including our moderator, Giulia Cirillo, and of course, the extraordinary selection of panelists and speakers joining us in various sessions. And last but not least, I want to give you all a warm welcome, the many people, and both here in the room, but also to everyone joining us virtually around the world. We look forward to engaging with you all and to have some insightful and stimulating debates in the day ahead. In Australia, it's customary to begin formal proceedings by marking what is known as an acknowledgement of country, which is a chance to pay respect to the people whose connection to the place of gathering stretches for hundreds, even thousands of years. In Australia, we do this by acknowledging our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional custodians of our land. This practice is about giving recognition to the stewardship provided by generations of men and women, and about showing gratitude for the knowledge, traditions, and wisdom that they have handed down to us. And another thing we do in this acknowledgement of country is to express our respect to leaders, past, present, and emerging. And given today's theme on women's leadership, it seems particularly fitting to pay homage to those who have opened pathways before us, those who paved the way by championing values, many of which we now take for granted, the women and the men who fought for equal rights, for fair political representation, for the bridging of social and economic gaps, and for the end of injustices and violence. We stand on their shoulders today. In making this acknowledgement, I want to take a moment to reflect on the notion of leadership, and more specifically on the challenges that come with becoming a leader and with being recognised as one. For women, that challenge is twofold. In order to rise to the top, we are required to stand out, surpass expectations, prove ourselves worthy of equality. As has so often been said before, women must work twice as hard to be thought of as half as good. But women leaders also have to contend with the bias and stereotyping that comes with being assertive. And of course, the labels. If you are confident, you are bossy. If you are outspoken, you are shrill. If you stand up to others, you are angry. As a female leader, your lifestyle comes under scrutiny. Your choices are examined. There's something unusual about your journey as a woman which makes you feel entitled to call for change. Except women shouldn't have to justify themselves to seek change, just as women shouldn't have to be the first at achieving something or the best at doing something to get a chance to change things. Our economies, our political systems, our faith institutions need women, all women, because our social order can only be truly functional with the full participation of women in their rich and wonderful diversity. So as we open this important conversation today, I want to propose a new vision of women leadership that celebrates women in their diversity and the many different perspectives we bring to the table, and how, alongside men, we are effecting change. Today's event was conceived from the premise that through their transformative leadership, women are helping to build a brighter future. We will hear success stories of women's empowerment in a wide range of spheres, from peace building to healthcare to theology to training and upskilling. We will, of course, examine and shine a light on the existing barriers that women and girls face every day. But we also want this to be a channel for inspiration and hope about how women's contribution is as concrete as it is significant. And it's a contribution we see in every field, every single day. Recently, at an International Women's Day event in Canberra, our Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, spoke about the relevance of calling for equality. And she observed that this is not just a women's problem that we pay lip service to once a year. It is central to our interests. Australia has a steadfast commitment to women and girls around the world, and we're currently working on a new strategy to chart further action. This strategy will affirm gender equality as a vital national interest central to Australia's foreign policy, international development, humanitarian action, trade and security goals. It will be a thread that will link some of our most important tools of statecraft, because we recognise that without engaging with and working for women, our tools won't be effective in addressing the challenges that we face today. We're also tying this to this year's International Women's Day theme, as chosen by the United Nations: Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress, which highlights the need to ensure women are able to reach and contribute their full potential, with a view to addressing the many crises we face globally, from conflict to climate change to poverty and food insecurity. Today's event seeks to echo and amplify that call here at the Holy See by giving women leaders the opportunity to share their experiences and to reflect on the role and contribution of women both within the Catholic Church and beyond. As ambassadors, we know well the impact and influence of the Catholic Church through its various arms that it carries around the world, and we hope to be able to strengthen our collaboration going forward. We know that supporting women's transformative power is central to Pope Francis's vision, and we converge on that strong message which he has shared so many times. Quote, "It is not possible to pursue a better, fairer, more inclusive and fully sustainable world without the contribution of women," end quote. So thank you all for joining us today, and I look forward to our enriching conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for reminding us that we stand on the shoulders of giants, as the saying goes, but also how far we have to go and what work there is still to be done. And I hope everyone is feeling thoroughly located within what I think we can say is the generative tension that underpins this event. This idea that we're here to celebrate where we are, but also to look at what lies ahead and how we can move forward. We look forward to your contributions on that in the discussions. So it is now my great pleasure to pass the microphone for our opening remarks to Sister Patricia Murray, who is Executive Secretary of the International Union of Superiors General.
Thank you very much, Giulia. And my thanks to the British and Australian ambassadors to the Holy See and to Caritas Internationalis for the privilege of presenting these opening remarks as we begin this International Women's Day conference with the theme, Women Leaders Towards a Brighter Future. This title brings me back to the early 1600s, when the foundress of my religious congregation, an Englishwoman, Mary Ward, envisaged a new form of religious life for women. It was to be non-cloistered, with sisters engaging in the education of women and girls and meeting the social needs of the day. But in 1617, when a cleric made an observation about the weakness of the religious fervour of her sisters, saying, "They are but women," she responded vigorously, saying, "There is no such difference between men and women that women may not do great things." And then she added, "And I hope in God that it will be seen that women in time to come will do much." Sadly, in the 17th century, her God-given vision was suppressed by the Church. However, over the century, Mary Ward's vision for women, and indeed the vision of countless women within church and society, has brought about changes. Some years ago, I shared a panel with women leaders here in Rome from different fields. One a CEO, another an international lawyer, a third was an astronaut, and the fourth ran her own business. Several were mothers with children. The topic focused on Pope Francis's appeal for a revolution of tenderness and compassion. They shared how tenderness and compassion in both the home and workplace was essential for the flourishing of humanity. These were women who had broken through the glass ceiling of their professions and who sought to make a difference. While I remember that particular experience, my thoughts really turned to the many women that I've met over the years, living in challenging and difficult situations. Women who are leaders in their own right because of their extraordinary resilience, courage, and hope. I remember them today and honor them. Who can forget the many women who today are living with their families in difficult contexts, especially where wars, conflicts, and scarcity prevail? I want to remember women who walk for hours to the well for water and labor in the fields, women who have been trafficked, women who migrate overseas to work to support their families at home. I think of the women who challenge cultural mores in their societies and want a better and more fulfilling life for their daughters. I hear the voice of one woman in South Sudan proclaiming loudly, "I will see to it that my daughter won't be valued by the number of cows needed for her dowry." I want to remember the women who are raising their voices to protest at environmental destruction happening near their villages because of mining and deforestation. I could go on and on. In the midst of these demanding situations, women are showing extraordinary leadership across the planet. Wells are being dug, trees planted, cultural practices are being slowly challenged and changed. Awareness-raising campaigns are tackling human trafficking. Women are advocating for education and health care for themselves and their families. They are joining hands across old bitternesses and hatred to work for peace and justice. They're working together in local cooperatives and women's groups to build sustainable livelihoods. They sing, they dance, and they rejoice together, even in the midst of daily difficulties, because they know that community and collaboration are the only way to build a common future. The Dominican Albert Nolan wrote in the past that the only way ahead is together, hand in hand, helping and healing one another. And where are we, the Catholic sisters? We are there in the midst of the struggles of people. We have answered Pope Francis's call to leave our nests, to go out through the door and meet the people, go out on the streets, go to the frontiers, leave the centre and travel to the peripheries, reach the fringes of humanity. Together with other women and men, we are building networks of solidarity and developing practical projects to tackle human trafficking, to welcome migrants and refugees, and to mitigate and confront climate change and environmental destruction. We are there reaching out in multiple ways to those seeking help of any kind. Care for the planet and care for the poor is at the heart of our mission and ministries, because fullness of life is the core of gospel living. As women religious, we feel called to take up a leadership role in encouraging people to work for real connectedness, to be in solidarity with one another, to work together to tackle global and local challenges, and to advocate with governments for changes in policies and programs. Pope John Paul II stressed that the virtue of solidarity calls us all not to a vague feeling of compassion or shallow distress at the misfortunes of many people, both near and far. On the contrary, he said, it is a firm and persevering determination to commit oneself to the common good, that is to say, to the good of all and of each individual, because we are really responsible for all. And where are we as Catholic sisters within the Church? You know, as sisters, we occupy an interesting place in the life of the Church. We are lay people with a vocation to live the vowed life in community. We are not clerics, and yet the public often view sisters as part of the clerical institution. Like women everywhere, we care about the Church and its mission. We want to bring our experiences, insights, and perspectives to shaping the mission of Christ in the world. As religious, we are called to a prophetic, mystical presence in the Church and world. Pope Francis, in a message to religious men and women, said the following: "I'm counting on you to wake up the world, since the distinctive sign of consecrated life is prophecy. Radical evangelical living is not only for religious men and women, it is demanded of everybody. This is the priority that is needed now, to be prophets who witness to how Jesus lived on this earth. A religious," he said, "must never abandon prophecy." We as sisters can bring that prophetic dimension to the life of the Church at every level. During these past years, we have welcomed the appointment of women, both religious and lay, to positions within Vatican dicasteries, knowing that they bring with them a diversity of perspectives and experiences. In addition, we are now hearing the voices and experiences of thousands of sisters living and ministering at the margins and bringing their voices and others into the public discourse. In the past, the voices and experiences of sisters were rarely heard. Now that has changed, and sisters in many parts of the world see that the call to be prophets impels them to speak out on behalf of those who have no voice, but more so to stand with them as they raise their own voices to seek the conditions necessary to live a dignified life. Much indeed has happened in terms of raising the importance of the role of women in leadership in the Church. Pope Francis has said on numerous occasions that it is necessary to broaden the opportunities for a stronger presence of women in the Church. An increasing number of women, lay and religious, from different parts of the world serve on the councils of Vatican dicasteries, on pontifical councils and academies, and on various commissions. They bring their expertise in theology, liturgy, law, economics, the sciences, health, bioethics, art and architecture, education, culture, family and religious life, and many other fields to these roles, and the Church is enriched by these diverse gifts. In his encyclical Evangelii Gaudium, Pope Francis wrote that we need to create still broader opportunities for a more incisive female presence in the Church. In the post-synodal exhortation, Querida Amazonia, Pope Francis praised the way lay and religious women have kept faith alive in the Amazon region. During the synod itself, he said that we still not have understood how and why women are important in the Church, saying we often focus on the functional, what offices they are permitted to hold, while it is important, but it is not everything. He continually acknowledges the essential and irreplaceable contribution of women to the Church, their equal dignity, saying that women must be valued in their own right. What is important to Pope Francis is that through baptism as Christians, we all share equally in the mission and ministry of the Church. This was central to the recent Synod on Synodality. The number of women attending this Synod of Bishops was increased significantly, and the women participants, both lay and religious, had the right to vote. Participation at the Synod was a profound experience for those who attended. The conversation in the Spirit method enables participants to listen to and to hold with respect and reverence different perspectives on many topics. Among the women participants, there is a diversity of perspectives. The role that women can and will play will be crucial in the emergence of a synodal church. The matter of the female diaconate is being considered, the possibility for women to preach, and the need for new types of ministries were other topics discussed. The Synod asks the participants to discern by the light of the Word of God and by listening to the Holy Spirit the doctrinal, liturgical, canonical, and pastoral questions that arise at any time. This is not a quick process. It will take time, even beyond the second session of the Synod, and it requires deep listening to one another and to the Spirit. Before the Synod on Synodality, Archbishop Mark Coleridge of Brisbane acknowledged that synodality could be messy, marked by tensions, and would require holy patience. He is convinced, like others, that this is the way forward. It is what the Spirit is saying to the Church today. He says that synodality is a new moment of awakening, which is recentering the whole Church. He noted that this is calling us to a new type of faith where all vocations are being reconfigured, not just those pertaining to lay people and to women. The Archbishop said that the call to synodality is profoundly biblical, saying we are part of not of a static, but of an on the way church that is continually in process. He sees the role of women as essential to continuing that process. The Synod calls us for dislocation, moving from one place to another. But Archbishop Coleridge says this all happens at a price. it will involve painful decisions of what we leave behind and what we take on. And in conclusion, we as women have set out on this synodal journey with hope as the participation and leadership of women begins to flourish within the church and within society. But there is still much to be done. Reflection, presence, encounter, sensitivity to the needs of others, going deeper, discerning the greater good are in our DNA as women. Today, as we live through major global challenges, no matter where we live, people are experiencing vulnerability and fragility and the call to solidarity and compassion. More and more, we realize that we can only make the future by walking together, women and men, sharing companionship and the lights of the Holy Spirit as we move towards the edge of tomorrow. And so I can again echo the words of Mary Ward that I quoted at the beginning. There is no such difference between men and women that women may not do great things. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sister Pat, for speaking so powerfully to the title of this session, Women as Builders of Hope, and for reminding us, as women religious know so clearly and bear in mind always so comprehensively, that building hope is about achievements and it is about appointments to new roles of visibility, but it's also, as you say, about every tree planted, every voice raised, no matter where, no matter on what scale, every girl child raised to believe she's equal to her brothers. So thank you for putting that into perspective. And we turn now to a video message from Kirsty Robertson, who is Vice President of Caritas Internationalis.
It was a real honour to be asked to say a few words at the opening of the conference today. I'm joining you from Australia, from the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who have cared for this land for centuries. While it would have been nice to be with you in person, I am grateful for the technology that enables us to connect from across the world. In the 60 years or so of Caritas Australia's story, I am its first female CEO, something I am reminded of often. And again, when I was elected to the leadership of Caritas Internationalis last year, many people wanted to discuss the fact that I was a woman. I look forward to the day when women in leadership is not a topic of conversation, but until then, I'm proud to be part of a confederation that values the voice, the agency, and the presence of women at all levels. At Caritas, our vision is a world where women and girls are safe and respected, and where women and men share equally in shaping their societies, and where everyone is empowered to reach their full potential. Both women and men need to be part of the solution. I see these conversations as an opportunity to remind people that poverty has a woman's face. By every measure, women are disproportionately affected by poverty. That was true before COVID, and it's still true today. Despite some important progress to change this in recent years, in no country have women achieved economic equality with men, and women are still far more likely than men to live in poverty. Globally, they are less likely than men to be involved in decision-making, to own land, or to own property, to have access to an education, to technology, and to employment. But here's the thing. In the villages of Nepal, in the slums of Manila, in the fields of Tanzania, girls and women dream of an education, dream of a midwife beside them when they're giving birth. They dream of running their own business. They dream of being their village chief. Last year, I met a woman called a Yo-Yo at a cash distribution project being run by Caritas in Ethiopia. It was right down the south of Ethiopia in the middle of drought. She was sitting at a complaints handling desk and facilitating the complaints during the cash distribution. This is a volunteer role. She was elected by her community. She's a widow with 5 children, 2 of which are still at home, and the drought had destroyed her crops and left her family very hungry. She had received support through this cash distribution program, as well as through the Livelihoods project that ran alongside it. And she said without this support, her children might have died. Her role as the complaints volunteer was to support others in the community, to let them understand the criteria and to go through the process to access benefits. That enabled them to link up with the Caritas Australia staff and further receive support. She said when she was chosen, it made her feel respected among the community and like she was doing something valuable for the community to help solve their problems. The face of poverty remains a woman's face, but the face of hope and of change in these communities is also a woman's face. And the data backs that up. The data clearly shows that women's empowerment and equality between men and women makes countries more stable, makes them less vulnerable to conflict, and in general, makes them better governed. Women are builders of hope at the grassroots and all the way to the halls of power. And as Pope Francis said in a homily back in 2020, when women can transmit their gifts, the world finds itself more united and more peaceful. Therefore, an achievement for women is an achievement for all of humanity. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the conference.
Wonderful to be reminded of the perspective that Caritas brings to this event with its grassroots engagement in over 200 countries and territories and with its focus on women's empowerment, education and participation in leadership and in decision making. So before we go to the coffee break, we are going to watch one more video, and this video is intended as food for thought for our next session, so you can think about it while you have your coffee. This video is a short presentation on the International Survey of Catholic Women that was carried out by Tracy McEwen and Kathleen Phillips at the University of Newcastle in Australia.
Good morning, everyone, and very best wishes for International Women's Day. I'm Dr. Kathleen McPhillips, and I'm here with Dr. Tracy McEwen from the University of Newcastle. We are the lead researchers of the International Survey of Catholic Women, and we're very pleased to be reporting to you today on further findings of the survey, featuring participants' responses to the gospel and ministry of Jesus Christ. The International Survey of Catholic Women was commissioned by the organisation Catholic Women Speak. It was undertaken in 2022 in response to the call for submissions to the 2021-2024 Synod of Bishops. The survey was distributed widely in 8 languages, and the ISCW is the largest international survey of Catholic women ever undertaken. It collected responses from 17,200 women on the key issues, insights and experiences of women in the Catholic Church involving church reform and the COVID-19 pandemic. Responses came from all age groupings and regions of the world. An initial summary report was submitted to the Synod in September 2022. The ISCW analysis and report of key findings, the main report, was published in March 2023 based on survey findings and analysis. This short presentation will report on our analysis carried out on responses to survey questions. It will explore how respondents reported on their experiences have been empowered by their personal commitment and understanding of the ministry of Jesus.
A key theme of open responses was the high importance of respondents' relationship with the Catholic Church, including their Catholic identity and faith participation. We found a significant majority, 88% of all respondents, agreed or strongly agreed with the statement, "My Catholic identity is important to me." When describing their current relationship with the Church, respondents often labelled themselves as active, involved, or practising Catholics, using the descriptors committed, strong, devout, or loyal. However, while Catholic identity and faith participation was seen as highly important, respondents repeatedly described tensions or strain in their relationship with the Church, negatively impacting their capacity to participate in church life. Respondents from all age cohorts and regions used terms such as difficult, troubled, distanced, frustrated, and challenged.
There were various reasons given for respondent strain or difficulty. One such concern was the perception that the institutional church was at odds with respondents' personal commitment and understanding of the gospel message. For example, respondents said, "Jesus and his message are drowning in the church."
Responses acknowledged the marginalisation of women, often expressing how the lack of equality for women in church communities and workplaces sits in stark contrast to the treatment of women by Jesus described in the Gospels. For example, these participants said, "Women have sustained the church for centuries. To speak of following Christ without recognising the substantive equality of women goes against the gospel."
The radical inclusion of women and the marginalised in the ministry of Jesus, however, was also a source of hope and encouragement. For instance, respondents said, "I love the church where, as God's people, all people must have a place. I know that there is a need for organisation and guidance. However, the current hierarchical structure is not the one to follow." And Jesus was so inclusive. No one, not even the greatest sinner, was outside his loving relationship.
Respondents urged the synodal process and church leaders to be inspired by the ministry of Jesus, particularly in regard to the inclusion of women. For example, these respondents said, "I know how hard it is for a 2,000-year-old institution to shake its fundamental leadership system. We would have to see what Jesus would do." As we leave you now to reflect on the insights of women from the International Survey of Catholic Women, we share with you one last voice, which raises an important question. There should be a greater emphasis on living the gospel in simplicity, being truly inclusive, seeing all people as sisters and brothers in Christ, reaching out to the poor with genuine love. Where has this simple yet profoundly human and extremely beautiful message got lost? Over 70 years, UK.
Wonderful. So with those reflections in mind, we will go to our coffee break. Refreshments will be served downstairs where you first walked in. So down the stairs and to the right, colleagues will be on hand to direct you so you can't get lost. I would ask you to return punctually at 5 minutes to 11 so that we can start on the dot of 11 o'clock, mainly out of consideration for those who are joining us online, apart from anything else. And if you are leaving after any session, please do remember you can leave your headset on the table or at the desk. Just try to leave it somewhere. Thank you and see you in half an hour.